Hasanabi reacts to angry Elizabeth Warren on overturning Roe v. Wade. And I haven't even seen this clip.
Angry and upset?
Angry and upset and determined. The United States Congress can keep Roe versus Wade the law of the land.
I don't think that she has anything to worry about. I don't think that this ruling is going to keep her from doing anything that she's planned on doing in the near future.
They just need to do it.
I've never seen you so angry. You seem to be...
This is what the Republicans have been working toward this day for decades.
Dude! Okay, one thing I want to point out here.
When it
comes to long-term goals, right? And the rights that these politicians who most definitely care about you, sort of like want to give us, they have their end games, The GOP is like, we want to instill these goals into the country. The left wing is like, we want to instill these goals into the country. Well, while the GOP has won on this, we are literally like almost intentionally and voluntarily ceding ground to the Democrat Party when it comes to the Second Amendment. There is a bill, I forget what it's called, but it literally just passed the Senate, which would restrict gun rights, and it's hit Joe Biden's desk. And so, when he wakes up, I'm quite sure that Kamala Harris or Jill Biden will tell him to sign this bill. So while, yes, one thing that is important to remember is that, yes, this is a huge day when it comes to politics and it comes to human rights, especially for people on the right. I'm mostly speaking to people on the right here. I understand that they're going to be left-wing viewers here. At the same time, we're losing, more Second Amendment rights. So, yes, 5 steps forward. Great job with overturning Roe v. Wade. We're taking 1 or 2 steps back here by literally going to the Democratic Party and being like, hey, you know what? Maybe the Second Amendment wasn't the greatest thing in the world. Maybe it would be fine to sort of like, let the government have more restrictions on the types of guns that we have because, the government can most certainly be trusted. But anyways, I'm sort of like getting off track here. Let's continue.
They have been out there plotting, carefully cultivating these Supreme Court justices.
Thank you. DM your takes for the 10 gifts.
So they could have a majority on the bench who would accomplish something that the majority of Americans do not want.
Okay, one thing, there's this line that the mainstream media has been saying, right, which is that abortion is something that the majority of Americans want. And while, yes, there is a poll that says that, I think that 60 or 70% of Americans, ended up saying that, we want abortion to be law. One thing that's important to keep track is very few Americans want abortion on demand, no restrictions, and no limitations on, where, when exactly this abortion can take place. It's one thing to go up to people and ask, like, hey, abortion, you think this is something that should exist? Yeah. But there's a whole other thing, which is there have been studies that have been done where they ask people like, hey, abortion at this trimester, that trimester, this amount of weeks, that many days, that many hours, how much are you okay with? The only point of a fetus, of a human being's development, where people sort of like unanimously agree is okay to maintain is up to 15 weeks. When you get past 15 weeks, people are like,
DJLL reacts. Said in the chat, bro, I exposed
sure
2P3 dose the other day.
Of, sort of like, abortion at 6 months, abortion at 9 months, 8 months. So it's very, very hard to even find a section, a subset of time within those 9 months where everyone can even agree that abortion should exist. This creates this illusion that there's some sort of unity that just doesn't exist even among people who are pro-choice.
69% of people across this country.
Lennox
69%
said in the chat. Question mark.
Across this country,
DJLL reacts.
Blue states,
said in the chat.
And young people
the chat.
Want Roe versus
I exposed
Wade
MA and someone else.
The law of the land.
Okay, one thing that I want to say too, and I've said this before. I think I said this in my previous stream about Roe v. Wade. But when people are like, "Oh, this is not what the people wanted," there is something to take into account. You may not like this, but this is what you voted for. And let me explain this,
Mr. Pizza
Look at the Supreme Court justices,
said in the
right?
chat.
Okay.
Who was the other person?
Who sort of, nominates the Supreme Court justices, of the United States?
Lennoxo said in the chat.
Oh,
what is EDP
wait a minute.
445?
That's the President of the United States. And who determines who the President of the United States is? Oh, well, the people who vote, in the national elections. And you're like, okay, well, let's consider the fact that the President of the United States cannot single-handedly determine who the next Supreme Court justice is.
DJLL reacts.
Checks and balances.
Said
so
in the
it's
chat.
not completely up to
friend. Lennoxo said in the
president.
Chat. Was
who the next nominee is. Well, who is that next step? Because there's a nomination by the president. The next check and balance is, well, Congress, the Senate and the House, right? They have to do these interviews, these hearings, and confirm these people, to be the, the next Supreme Court justice. Well, how, pray tell, do these people get into Congress? How do these people get into the House and Senate? Well, you voted these
Mr.
people
Pizza
in.
Said in the chat.
So here's what I want to say.
DJLL,
And
was
this goes to the pro-life people.
YouTuber?
This goes to the pro-choice people as well. If you want change, if you want the Supreme Court to do a certain thing, you need to vote at every single level for the people who are going to enact the change that you want. If you're pro-life, right?
DJLL
you gotta
reacts.
make sure that you're
Said
going
in
to
the
vote
chat.
for senators,
Nope.
for congressmen, for people in the House who are going to, when the time comes for a new Supreme Court judge to be nominated and voted on, you got to ensure that the person that you're voting for is going to instill the very values that you hold dear to yourself. This is how the system works. Protests alone don't enact change. Dude is in a state right now. He is in a state.
Yeah. Get a gun.
Lennoxo
Get a gun and go to
said
the
in the
abortion
chat.
clinic.
May God
Do
have
it
mercy on
now.
his soul.
And then on the other side, you have liberals who are like, oh, everybody likes Roe v. Wade. What's going on? It's just, we're weaponizing mental illness on the Republican side. Meanwhile,
What is he talking? What?
Democrats are just like, oh no, our institutions are crumbling. Oh no.
And that's another thing too, because Hasan has a point here, which is that the Democratic Party is not going to fight as hard for the rights that they say they're going to fight for, as they say they will. At least we're seeing this right now with the Republicans. This whole time, ever since the Uvalde shooting, it's like, oh, we need to support gun rights. We just need to have more police officers. We just need to have more guards.
I'm here
and then
for
what
the
do?
giga-chad,
They
not
go
for
out
the
and vote
politics,
in
XD.
support of a gun control bill. 12, 14 Republicans go and vote in support of this bill. Same thing with the Democrat side, right? You know what? I will give them credit, right? Because once it was leaked that this would be the rule, they were like, all right, what we need to do? We need to go and make our own pro-abortion bill.
DJLL
Make a law
reacts.
that
Said in the
legalizes
chat.
abortion at the
Josh,
federal
me
level.
too. Lennoxo
And I was
said in the
actually
chat.
thinking at the time
It
that they
took 10
did that,
days.
yo, props. This is exactly the type of movement that people need to do. Don't like sit in the corner coping and seething and crying your eyes out. Do something politically, because politically is the only way that change happens. And that's what the Democrats did. And I was like, okay, kudos. You're using the system instead of using up the street where people actually need to use to drive and go to work and go home. But, they made this law, right? They voted on it. It failed. Now, I think Hasan's point here is that, the Republican Party, the Democrat Party at this point is not going to keep on fighting for abortion rights. Let's put it that way. Case in point, I dare you, I want to see the Democrat Party in 2, 4, 6 years take the same pro-abortion bill, bring it up for consideration, and have people vote on it again. If you're truly, as the Democratic Party, going to fight for abortion, what you would do is continually bring this law up to Congress. Be like, hey, we need to ban abortion. This law, boom,
Mr.
vote
Pizza
on it every single time.
said in the chat.
And now,
Newbie, what if we made a
I'm
subreddit
not
for you so
saying,
you could react to
I'm not
our
in
memes?
support of abortion at all, right? But I'm saying that that's what the Democratic Party should do if they're not hypocrites, if they're actually supporting the rights that they say that they do.
No, we're not. And we have a right.
Dismembering 3,000 children.
We've heard enough.
Like, that guy is literally one activation from a Fed away from shooting up a abortion clinic and then getting.
Okay, honestly, he's probably true. And I do want to take this time out to say violence is bad.
Anyway, clearly this was Bernie's fault. Get educated. Obviously, you're a masquerading leftist who's misinforming us to break our organizational efforts and discourage us from seeing the 60-second ad break at the top of the hour. It's honestly very messed up.
JLL reacts. Said in the
I've been doing this for a very long time. They're not pro-life. They're pro-minimizing women's rights. If they were pro-life, we'd have better gun control, universal health care, better support for homeless people.
Mr. Pizza said in the
This is all
chat.
ridiculous. Pokimane here, who's at Pokimane lol on Twitter, is like, they're not pro-life. They're pro-minimizing women's rights. If they were
Mr.
pro-life,
Pizza
we'd have better
said in
gun
the
control,
chat.
universal health
Well,
care,
we all
better
know
support
Daniel
for
Lord loves
homeless
the KK.
people and those in need. Don't be fooled by their jargon. Okay, I want to clap back on this. Pro-minimizing women's rights. No, let's face it. Not all fetuses are female. There are some women who are sort of like cooking in the oven too right now, right? If we hated women, we would be advocating for, say, selective abortions, so that just like in China, we could get rid of all of the women. But that's just not what we're doing, okay? Also, since they are pro-life, we have better gun control. No, because you know what? Gun control leads to gun violence. So of course we wouldn't support gun control if we were pro-life, right?
Mr.
Universal
Pizza.
healthcare. The thing with universal healthcare is when you instill it, it makes some things better and it makes healthcare a lot more accessible. But the problem is it tends to, in general, decrease the quality of care, because usually the cheaper something is, the worse it is. If healthcare is going to be universal and free, you better you buckle in, boys. Expect it to be bad. And so, for people who are pro-life, we're gonna be like, yo, I think that healthcare should be high quality and it should be good. Now, people in the Democrats, and I think rightfully so, are going to be upset because higher quality healthcare is more expensive. It being more expensive makes it less accessible. But I think that you can sort of counter that by enacting policies that allow the citizens to better enrich themselves. By enacting policies that instead make the economy better, will allow people to be able to afford the higher quality, the more expensive healthcare. Why? Because they have more money at their disposal. When it comes to better support for homeless people, part of me is like, I don't know about that, because I think that, yes, I think it is good to have a better safety net for people who are homeless, but at the same time, again, pro-life people, Republicans, people on the right side of the aisle, people who actually genuinely care about life are going to enact policies that will, again, allow the economy to thrive, and which allows these citizens to enrich themselves so that, guess what? They will not be in those situations because it will be, easier for them to get jobs. Pay
Mr. Pizza
will be higher.
said in the chat.
The more welfare you have, the poorer the citizens will be. That's literally what Trump and his UBI have. It's not a UBI, but with Trump's COVID stimmies, that's what they showed us, right? Because, hey, let's be honest here. Donald Trump, with his COVID stimulus checks, are kind of what got us to this point in the first place. A post like this, if you don't really think about it with nuance and consider the actual consequences of all these policies, then you will end up being like, oh yeah, good stuff. This is great. Go Pokimane. But no, when you think about it and the impacts of these policies, these are all more or less policies that will harm the American people, make their quality of life
Mr.
worse.
Pizza
These are just
said in
not
the
good
chat.
things.